just to give everyone an overview of the Community Data Program Catalog and how to download data and use the Beyond 2020 software. So we'll be going through a little bit of background information about the Community Data Program, and then we'll also be doing some exercises. So if you're at home and you have your computer in front of you with Beyond 2020 installed, you're welcome to follow along. We'll do some interactive pieces just so that people can practice using the software. If you have any questions, you can type them into the chat box, I think, and maybe Mary, if you can just let me know if you see a question, maybe I haven't noticed it, maybe you can just announce it to me, and then I'll be sure to answer that.
Sure, Jasmine, can you see the questions up on your screen?
I can, yeah. I'm just thinking if I'm in another window, I may not be.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I will draw your attention anytime there's a question.
Perfect. Thanks very much. Yeah, and thanks to everybody for logging in online. This is really exciting that there are 30 of you right now. That's far more than I expected, and I'm really pleased that we can try out this software and see how it works for everybody. If you're having any trouble hearing, maybe let Mary know, and we can try to figure that out. We've got some beeping here from someone's computer on this end. That was what that noise was. Okay. So, like I said, we're going to do a little bit of an overview of the Community Data Program and communitydata.ca, and then we're going to practice using the site and go through some examples of how we download data and how we can answer questions with it. And we'll have some time for practice as well. So the Community Data Program is a partnership between the Canadian Council on Social Development and Statistics Canada, and right now we have 31 local consortia around Canada. And so they make up just a group of people, sometimes including the municipality, sometimes including social organizations, kind of grouped together to participate in the Community Data Program on a local level. We have members include over 50 Canadian municipalities and over 1,000 users. And the program facilitates community access to data from Statistics Canada and other providers. So many of you might be aware that sometimes if you need special data from Statistics Canada, it can be very expensive. And so we can kind of group together through the Community Data Program and be able to purchase this data together in a more cost-effective way, and then also have a community of practice around using the data. And Natasha, I see your question around whether this will be available to view after the webinar. I'm not sure yet. I think we talked about perhaps posting this online. The issue might be if there's lots of questions in person here, it might be a little bit hard for people to follow online, so we'll see. But hopefully there'll be either this one or we'll re-record it at a later date, and hopefully then be able to post something that's a little more succinct for an online audience. So the purpose of the Community Data Program, or CDP, is threefold. So the first is to purchase and facilitate access to social data at the smallest geographies possible. So what we're looking at here is data for areas smaller, hopefully smaller than cities, towns, and villages, and looking at those smaller areas. It's also to train organizations to analyze community data and use it for better decision making. So we really want to apply this data to our professional practice or to the community work that we're doing. And then the third goal or purpose is to communicate and disseminate the results as widely as possible. So we like to share the products that we produce with the data with the public, with our community partners, and just make sure that everybody has the data they need to make good decisions. So communitydata.ca is the portal that you can use to access online, or for online access to CDP data. So there's a big catalog there, and then there's also some links to resources and other training materials. If you don't already have access to communitydata.ca, but you are part of an organization that's in a local data consortium, you can arrange for access by signing up on communitydata.ca. And usually that access is arranged within 1 business day. So if you haven't already signed up and you're just viewing this presentation now, unfortunately you won't be able to gain access immediately, but you could arrange for access and practice tomorrow if you like. And if you work for an organization that is not part of a local data consortium, you can contact the folks at the Community Data Program to talk about maybe signing up your organization as to form a new data consortium. The Beyond 2020 software that we're using today for this workshop is available for download on communitydata.ca, and it's free. And as well, as part of the communitydata.ca website, we also can arrange access for the Envision license that the community data program holds. So we've got kind of 3 things that we can do here. We can download software, like Beyond 2020. We can book access to data that's provided by other data providers, like that Envision product. And then we can also download data sets directly from the website. So if you don't already have access, I'm just going to walk through this quickly because I'm making an assumption that a lot of you already have your account signed up. But if you don't already have access, you can go to communitydata.ca, and then you'll see on the right-hand side of the screen, there's a box that says user login. And below that, there's an item that says create a new account. And so if you don't already have an account, you can sign up for access there. Like I said, though, it's important that you work for an organization that's already part of a local data consortium. Otherwise, we'd have to talk about setting up a local data consortium for you to get access to this community data program. So if you have access to the community data program already set up, we're going to go through the process of just logging in. So I'm going to share my screen with you, and I'll show you online how this works. So just give me a second here. Oops. I'm working on a computer that is not my own, so I have to log out for Mike first. So, as I said, on the right-hand side, we've got the user login box, and so I'm going to type my username and password in there, and if you don't have an account, you can ask to create an account now, or you can request a new password if you've forgotten yours. So I'm just going to log in. And apparently I can't remember my own password. This is embarrassing. Can't tell if the caps lock is on either. Oh, there we go. Okay. Okay. So I'm now logged in. I'm just going to go back to my slides now. So hopefully you've had a chance to log viewing online. So even if you don't already have an account with the Community Data Program, anybody can look through the Find Data tab on communitydata.ca, and it shows you all of the contents of the catalog. You don't need to be logged in to view the contents of the catalog. You just have to be logged in if you want to download data. And so even if you haven't had a chance to sign up for your account, you can follow along today in that way. And if you ever have a colleague or another organization in your community that would like to know a little bit about what's in the catalog for your community data program, you can just send them to the website and they can look through the Find Data tab to kind of better understand what's there before signing up. So what's in the catalog? What we have is a lot of small area data. So it's primarily, we try to focus on getting access to information at areas smaller than cities, towns, and villages. So things like census tracts. We also have municipal level data. We're from Calgary, so there's lots of stuff for the City of Calgary and also for the census metropolitan area. So there's lots of data at that level. And then we also have Statistics Canada data at custom geographies. So for us in Calgary, our communities don't line up with census tracts or dissemination areas or anything like that. Instead, we have different boundaries that make sense to us socially, but Statistics Canada isn't producing those geographies as a standard product. So instead, we order them through the community data program. So we got lots of different tables that provide information community by community, which is a really great feature of the program. In the catalog, there's also Statistics Canada custom orders. So if you go on the Statistics Canada website, you can actually access lots of data online. However, sometimes we're interested in special cross-tabulations of the data, and we can order those through the community data program. And normally, if we didn't order them through the community data program, for us at the City of Calgary, then we'd have to buy them directly from Statistics Canada, and that can get kind of expensive. There's also some analysis, reporting, and visualization tools, like that Envision product I mentioned before, and those are also housed in the catalog. So in terms of geographies, today I'm going to be talking lots about Calgary because that's where I'm from and that's where our examples come from. But you can either look to Calgary just as an example of understanding how you can access items at different levels of geography, or you can also look it up for your own local area if that's more interesting for you. So there are various standard geographies, and when I say standard geography, I mean it's one that Statistics Canada uses as their norm. So they have things like census subdivisions, which for us in Calgary is equivalent with our city limit. They also have things like census tracts, which are pretty smallish area sized, or smallish sized areas. So when I say smallish, I mean about maybe 4,000 people per census tract, 4,000 I think to 8,000. They also have dissemination areas, which are quite small, maybe 400 to 700 people. And then there's also larger geographies too, like provinces, census, metropolitan areas, and the country. So we also have custom geographies, like I mentioned, and those are available in the Community Data Program catalog for some products. And I'll show you later how to figure out what's available at those custom geographies. The Statistics Canada geographies can be a little bit tricky to use because they're identified with the numeric code. And so while a person in Calgary might know, oh, I live in Hillhurst, because I do, they may not know that they live in census tract like 8250040. Blah, blah, blah. And like it's a very long number. So those are a bit cumbersome to use colloquially, but they can be really great for matching up geographies in maps, for example, because they're a standardized code. And then some of those geographies align across hierarchy. So you can find that dissemination areas will fit inside your census subdivision, for example, and they'll line up nicely with the edge of with the census subdivision. So you won't find any dissemination areas that kind of cross two census subdivisions. And then some geographies don't line up very well with each other. So the census tracts don't always line up. Is that correct? With the census subdivisions? I think that's correct. Yeah, so you might find, for example, that half of a census tract is inside your census subdivision and half is outside. And so I'll describe that a little bit more in detail later, but it's good to know that they kind of come in sort of geographic families, and they all kind of, within a file, we'll see all of the ones from the same family together. And so you can know that you can add up all of the littler ones to make a big one. So the Beyond 2020 format, this is the software that we're going to try out today. Beyond 2020 is a program that is basically really great for viewing data. It's not very good for analyzing data, and it's really important to keep that in mind. When I first started using this software, I thought, oh, I must be getting it wrong because it's not working in the ways that I was expecting it to. But when I kind of stepped back and just took it a little bit more simply and decided it's basically like a pre-made pivot table where I can manipulate data and look at it at different views and get it set up for the sorts of analysis I want to do, it became a lot easier. If you don't already have this software, you can download it for free at communitydata.ca under the Data and Catalog Resources tab, I believe. The address is on the screen here. So Beyond 2020 has supported publishing of Statistics Canada data for quite a while, more than 20 years apparently. And it's designed to present multi-dimensional data in a manner that's easy to view and analyze and understand. And so when we say multi-dimensional data, we mean that we can kind of stack different items together sometimes. So we'll have geography, for example, where we'll say, okay, well, maybe we've got different cities. So we've got Calgary, we've got Vancouver, we've got Toronto. But we also will have maybe the age of people. So we'll have, age groupings, say like 0 to 4, 5 to 9, and so on. And then we'll also have maybe sex. So we'll have male, female, and total. And then we might also have information about people's immigration status or their Aboriginal identity or any number of other dimensions. And all of those can be moved around. So we could say, I want to just see the numbers for people who live in Calgary, who are female, who are aged 5 to 9, who have an Aboriginal identity, for example. We can stack all of those dimensions together really easily with this program. So it's actually really great for just that purpose. It's kind of like a pivot table in Excel, but it's already set up for you. It does offer some graphing options, for example, but they're really not very useful compared to what you can do in Excel. And what I find is most useful is just to set up the view so I can see what I need, and then just to copy it straight into Excel. And then I can make a chart in there. I can do calculations in there if I want to know, say, the percent of the population. It's much easier to do that in Excel or another spreadsheet kind of program than it is in Beyond 2020. So I won't go through this in detail right now, but you can download the Beyond 2020 browser on the communitydata.ca website. So you can go to the resources tab at the top, go to data and catalog, and download the Beyond 2020 professional browser, and then you can just install it. Now, we found at the City of Calgary that our IT department blocks installing software if you download it straight off the internet, so you may need to contact your IT department depending on where you work and what the security settings are to get permission. The really great thing about Beyond 2020, it's a bit funny to say this, but the program is not updated very often, and that's actually really great if you have to install software with the permission of your IT department, because we find that every time we get updates of software, they have to reapprove the program. In this case, it's updated very infrequently, and so you can get it approved once and just keep using it. So when we get to the catalog, which is on the Find Data tab of the communitydata.ca website, there are 4 ways to search for data. We've got the data group, which is kind of like the survey, though some big surveys are broken down into multiple parts. So we've got, for example, for the census, which is a huge survey, we've got multiple different kind of categories of census data so that it's a bit more easy to manage. But basically the data group is kind of like the survey. With the data provider is places like Statistics Canada or Environics Analytics or Citizenship and Immigration Canada and so on. So that's the source of that data. We have the geography, so that's telling us whether it's available for our census subdivision, for the province, for our custom geographies, which for us in Calgary include our communities, or like our neighborhoods and our wards. And then also we have the years within the data. So if we're looking for data from a particular time frame, we can narrow it down that way. With no filters on, I made these slides a few days ago, so it's possible something has changed, but with no filters on, the other day there were 737 products in the catalog. So each of these is a table that you can view, and sometimes it has multiple different files associated with it for different geographic families, but there's 737 different products total in the catalog. Currently, unfortunately, there's no way to keyword search within there, so you can't just search like for Aboriginal and see all of the tables that contain information about Aboriginal people. But we're working on this, I think, right for the next iteration of the website. I've got some folks here from the Community Data Program, and they are nodding. And there is an Excel file which lists all the contents of the current data sets in the catalog. And you can find that by going to the Resources tab. And then I think it's the Data and Catalog Resources and the Data Available that's shown. So you can open up this Excel file, which has 737 entries in it, and it has kind of all of the information about all the data sets. And what you can do then is you can just use the find function in Excel to search, and it's sort of imperfect, because if you're looking for an item like age is included in probably 2/3 or more of our tables, right? It's a very common item to be included, so it would be very hard to narrow down something by age with this with the search function in Excel, because you would be looking through maybe 500 tables. However, it's still kind of better than nothing, and if you're looking for something more specific, like maybe you're looking for like housing tenure, for example, so whether people rent or own, that one is probably included in only 20 tables or something in the catalog. And so you can use the find function in Excel, and you wouldn't have to look through that many to kind of see if what you're looking for is there. So that's one way to kind of get around the lack of a keyword search for the time being. I'm just, so I think Tristan, your question is about whether we will introduce a keyword search function onto the Community Data Program website. And it's my understanding that we're working on that, but that it's kind of tricky. So it may take a little while, but that is the ultimate goal, is to have better searchability by keyword or by topic, and possibly also by variable, so very detailed. We'll see how soon that happens, but I think that is the goal ultimately, to have that happen. And for now, this Excel spreadsheet is meant to be kind of a stopgap measure that helps provide some of that functionality while we're working on the website. And I say we because I'm on the, there's a working group that's working on this, and I'm part of that. So. But a lot of the work is being done by CDP staff. Okay, So I think let's jump in and try using the community data website. So the question here in example 1 is really simple. We're just wondering, how do I download a data set? So I'm going to walk you through that now. So in this example, we're going to assume that we know that the data that we want is within Census 2011 age and sex topic-based tabulations. So I'll show you how to find that. And we're looking for it for the census subdivision level. So I'm just going to show you how to find that, and just give me a second to switch to the other view here. So within the community data website, we can just go to the Find Data tab. And under the data group, if we scroll through here, we can see there are quite a lot of items. But we know we're looking for Census 2011. Don't get confused, there's also Census 2006, and we don't want to look at those right now. Instead, oops, just having trouble with this mouse here. Maybe I will take your mouse, Emily. I'm just going to get a mouse hooked up here. Just take a second. So we can see here Census 2011 age and sex topic-based tabulation. So I'm going to select that under the data group. Thank you. I'm just waiting for this mouse to get hooked up so that I can navigate a little bit more easily. Oh. Maybe I shouldn't have closed that so quickly. Okay, I'm just going to let that update, and I'll keep moving through here. And then under the geography, we're going to choose census subdivision. And census subdivision is, at least for Calgary, the same as our city limit. And I'm going to click search. So what comes up here is 2 tables, and I'm just going to return to the slides to see which one it was that I wanted. So I'm just waiting for this to open back up. Okay. So what we're looking for here is the one that says age groups, bracket 25, sex, bracket 3 for the population census 2011. And this is a really great example, or a really great opportunity to explain what the brackets mean. So you'll see throughout the catalog that you'll have an item like age groups, and then you'll have a bracketed number after it. In this case, it says 25, and what that means is there are 25 items in that age groups thing. So we see we've listed them here for you. So we've got total, we've got 0 to 14, 0 to 4 years, 5 to 9 years, 10 to 14 years, and so on. So we've got quite a lot of cuts within the ages. The other age table that was available when we did our search in the catalog, it said age 131. And so what I can guess from that is if there's 131 entries, probably means it's by year. So we're going to have age 1 and under 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, up until 120 or something, and then we'll have some totals as well. And then for sex, we see we've got 3, so we've got male, female, and total. Now, these bracketed numbers can be really helpful to kind of understand what might be in a table before you open it up. So if, for example, we see language spoken most often at home, and then the bracketed number is, say, 6 or 7, what that probably means is it contains English, French, English and French, neither English nor French, and then multiple responses in total or something like that. Whereas if we saw language spoken most often at home and it said 192, what that would probably mean is that it's going to provide us a very detailed listing where we might get to see Spanish, Cantonese, Italian, and so on, and we'll see all of the languages separated out individually. So it's a really good clue for us to kind of understand what might be in the table without having to open it up. Now, if you go to click on the age group 25, I'll show you this here on the screen. So if we click on this item in the catalog, we can actually click on any of these dimensions. So age group 25, for example. And if I click on that, I can actually see a listing of what's in there. So if you're not sure what's in an item, you can always click on the catalog entry to see the data set, and then under any of the dimensions, you can click on the link to see what sorts of things are included. And sometimes this is really important because it might say selected socioeconomic characteristics, 195. And how are you supposed to know what's in there? There's no way to guess, right? Because it could be almost anything. So you can just click on that item and you can see right away what would be in the table. So you don't have to download items that aren't useful for you. So in this case, we're going to download the table that says CSD. So here we've got abbreviated names for all of the different geographic levels that are included in these tables. So in this top one, I've got PT, which is for province or territory, CD, which is for census division. So that's an area that's smaller than the province, but bigger than your individual municipalities. And you can get reference maps for these geographies on the Statistics Canada website. So if you're not sure, for example, what the census divisions within your province look like, you can download those reference maps. And you can just, I think you just Google Statistics Canada reference maps. Is that right, Emily? Yeah. So you just Google Statistics Canada's reference maps, and then you can, oh, and you need to make sure you're looking at the Census 2011 ones, because they have historical reference maps as well, and the boundaries change over time. So you want to make sure you're looking at the one that's relevant to your data set. And then you can download those reference maps for the geography that you're looking for. Oh, and there's also a link on the resources page of the communitydata.ca website. This last one here on this top geographic family is CSD. So that's census subdivision. And like I said, for Calgary, at least it's equivalent with our city limit. And CSDs can vary a lot in size. They can be just towns or villages, and they can also be big cities like Calgary. The other geographic family we have here, it says CMA, which is Census Metropolitan Area. And there are, I think, about 35 or so census metropolitan areas across the country. And for us in Calgary, at least, it's Calgary plus the surrounding kind of smaller communities that really have a close link with us. And there are definitions for this as well on the Statistics Canada website. They have a particular rules around commuting flows and stuff that make a census metropolitan area. But basically, we think of it as the Greater Calgary area, and I think that probably stands for other CMAs as well. And then CA, which is census agglomeration, and that's areas that I think still have a pretty significant population, but aren't, they don't meet the criteria for the census metropolitan area, like with a big core city and then some areas around it. So those two fit together in a family, and then the province or territory, census division, and census subdivision fit in a family. So we're going to just click on the province, territory, and census division, census subdivision one, and we're going to add this to cart. Now, what you're going to see is kind of an online shopping interface, and as you can see, it says I'm spending $0. And I always like to just remind people, it's actually, this is just so that we can track how many, which data is getting used, who's downloading it, so that we can know what's valuable for people. It has nothing to do with cost. And it also, if you were to download tons of products, we're not going to charge you more for your membership or something. So you don't need to worry about the money aspect. It's just they use this online shopping interface so that we can track what data is actually getting used. So I'm just going to click checkout. If I had wanted to, I could click continue shopping and go pick other data sets as well. But for today's exercise, we just require this one. And then I'm going to click submit order. So it looks a lot like we're buying something on Amazon or something like that, but there's no money exchanged and there's no consequence to you for downloading data. So I'm just waiting for the internet connection to go through, but we're going to get to a page now, which is all of the files that I've ever purchased. Now, in this particular case, I've actually downloaded lots of stuff, and all of the tables appear based on when I first downloaded them. So I've downloaded this table before, so I'm going to have to search for it using like my Control F find function, and I'm just going to look for bracket 25 because I know there were 25 age groups. So I must have downloaded it a long time ago because it's not on the first page. But if you are kind of new to this and you haven't used the Community Data Program Catalog very much, then yours should hopefully appear on an earlier page or at the very top if it's the first time you've downloaded it. Pardon me? Oh, there we go. So here I found the file that I'm looking for, and I can just click on this link here and download the zip file. So I'm going to do that right now. And then, is it okay if I just save it in this folder? Okay, cool. So I'm just going to save it where it's defaulting to. And you can just save that zip file and then open it up in your Windows Explorer. Oh, that's one thing it's important to note. Beyond 2020 does not work with Mac computers. And so you have to be running a Windows computer to be able to use Beyond 2020, which is a little bit of a bummer for me. My personal computer is a Mac, but you'll just have to find a PC to work from if you would like to use Beyond 2020. So if I just unzip that file, I see the item come up here, and I can just double click on it or right click and say open, and it should launch into Beyond 2020, assuming you have the software installed. I had something else open here, but I'm just going to open up this table. So here we can see we've got our sex, our age, and then our geographies across Canada. So I'm not really going to show us how to manipulate this particular table, just to show you how the online shopping interface works and how to download a file. So we can see that there were about 33 million people in Canada for the 2011 census. So I'm just going to close this now, and we're going to move on to the next exercise. I'm just going to return to my screen here. If anybody on questions, please do type them in. I can see Jason is looking to ask something. So these slides are just reviewing what we just discussed, so I'm just going to move through them. Oh, and one quick tip actually on this slide here. If you type, one question that we get sometimes is if people want to go back and view all the things that they've downloaded or quote unquote purchased before, how do we return to that? And you can just do that by typing communitydata.ca/user into your internet browser, and it should bring you back to your own profile, and you can then see what you'd purchased before, so you can go back and download it directly from there rather than having to go repurchase it through the catalog. Jason has just asked what the anticipated length of the webinar is. I think we should be, I had allotted 2 hours. I hope not to take quite that long, but we want to leave some time for practice. So as long as until 3 p.m. Sorry, Mountain Time, but we will probably be done a little bit before then. Okay. So the next example we have here is wondering about how many people in Calgary who are living alone are divorced. So that's a question that we wanted to answer for us in Calgary, but you can answer it for your own municipality if you prefer. You can isolate your own area rather than Calgary. And this is just kind of a random question that helps us understand how do we find this information in the catalog. And so the first thing we need to answer is what can I do to find out where data is located regarding people living alone? So there's actually, as I mentioned, the Excel spreadsheet that populates with all of the information that's in the catalog. So we're going to go there now to download the Excel spreadsheet and figure out which data group has information on people living alone. So I'm just going to go there now. So we're going to go on the Community Data Program website. We're going to go to the Resources tab and then choose Data and Catalog. Oops. Just waiting for that to load. And then the very first item that comes up here, it says data available, and then we've got a link to a file that says list of all data tables in the Community Data Program catalog, and it generates an Excel file, and it's telling you to ignore the warning regarding the file extension. So I'm going to download that file by clicking on it. I'm just waiting for the internet to move. I'm just going to give this a second. So this file is going to contain all 737 items from the Community Data Program catalog, but it'll allow me to search it in a pretty systematic way with Excel rather than having only, I think it's probably about 20 items displayed per page. When we're browsing through the catalog, we can look through this file instead. Okay, so we've got this file that generates, and I'm just going to say save, and then I'm going to open it up. So it's giving me this warning, and it says, do you want to open the file now? And I'm going to say yes. So what I have here is an Excel spreadsheet that has quite a lot of information in it. So it's got the names for all of our tables, and then it's got, I think this is going to be data group. It's unfortunately missing the label. You've got the SKU number, which is probably not that useful for us, but it's probably useful for the folks at the community data program to keep everything organized. With the URL where it's located, the geographies for which it has in the file or available, and then the years within that data. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the find function by pushing Control F in my browser, and I'm going to type in alone because we're looking for people living alone. And what I see, the first item that comes up, and this is the one that I do want, is the target group profile of the population living alone. And I can see that under the second column, which is the data group, it's found in Census 2011-target group profile. Now I can see a link here, but I'll show you how to find this item. And you could just click on that link, but I'll show you how to find this in the catalog as well. So I'm going to go to my Internet Explorer, and I'm going to click on Find Data. And then from there, I'm looking for Census 2011 target group profile. So I have that selected. Now, I just want to make sure that my geography and my years and everything are not selected. So I'm just going to choose Census 2011 target group profile and hit search. And what this brings back is 15 results. So I see that we don't only have a target group profile of the population living alone, which is the one we're looking for, but we also have target group profiles for many other populations, like those aged 0 to 17, those living in subsidized housing, those who are visible minorities, female lone parents, 65 years in age and older, and so on. So we have lots of different target group profiles. We're going to take a look at the one for the population living alone right now, but the target group profiles follow a standard format, so we can know that the same sort of information that's provided about just the population living alone in this file would also be provided about the population age 0 to 17 or living in subsidized housing and so on in all of the other files. And they're presented in the same kind of order and the same format. So I'm going to click on that one and just see kind of what's in it. So I can see here that there's a little description. So a target group profile provides census or NHS profile variables for a subset or target group of the population. In this target group profile, it's the population living alone, and it gives us some notes as well as any relevant users guides. So in this case, we've got links to all of the different population-based user guides. So I'd have to look through here to see if there was one about the population living alone, and I don't think there is. But if you're looking for more information, these are the Statistics Canada user guides. And then I see on the right-hand side here that we have different geographies available. So for this one, we've got per province, census division, census subdivision, and dissemination area. And then here we've got census metropolitan area, census agglomeration, and census tract. And then custom geos. So custom geos, at least for us in Calgary, includes our neighborhoods and our wards. And so each data consortium will have submitted their own custom geographies for their own, whatever suits their purposes. And you would have to get kind of familiar with what's included in that based on your own local area, because I only really know about the Calgary context. Emily, do you remember which one we wanted at this one? CSD, okay. So we're going to download the top one here, the one that says province, territory, census division, census subdivision, and dissemination area, because what we're looking at is we want to know the characteristics of the population living alone in Calgary, and the CSD works for that. I'm going to say add to cart and go through and download this just like I did before. I'm going to say checkout. And then I'm going to submit my order. And again, I've probably purchased this item before, so I'll have to search for it, but for you, it will likely come up pretty close to the top. So I'm going to go Control F to get the find function, and I'm going to look for alone. Oh, here we go. It came up right near the top for me, so I'm going to download that file by clicking on the file. And I'm going to save it just to the default location for me here, but you can save it wherever you like. I'm going to open the resulting folder, and here we have our Beyond 2020 file. I'm going to return to my slides for a moment. Okay. And it looks like Tristan, Mary answered your question, so hopefully that is good for you. So we already went through how we could find the information from step 1, which was identifying that there's a target group profile of the population living alone, and it will help us find the data in the catalog. And we've gone through downloading the data and saving it to our computers. And those steps were the same as the ones we used in example 1. And then now we're going to open our IVT file. So I'll go back and do this in a moment, but if you like, if you're following along, you can just double click on that file and open it up and take a look in the Beyond 2020. Okay. So I'm going to now return to the Beyond 2020 file and show you a little bit about how you can find out more information about what's in this file. So we can open it up by double clicking, or I think you right click and say open. And what we get, so we can see we just have 2 dimensions in this file. It's very simple. We have geography along the top here. So we've got Canada, we've got a province, Newfoundland and Labrador, we've got division number 1. So these are the different geographies that are included in this file. And then running top to bottom, we've got items from the 2011 census. So we have population age groups. If we scroll down a little bit more, just show you what else is in here. We've got the marital status, we've got the living arrangements, we've got the living arrangements of seniors, we've got mother tongue, and so on. So we have lots of different items included here. Before I do too much in a new Beyond 2020 file, I sometimes like to check the summary. So if we go to File and then choose Summary, what we get actually here is a whole bunch of notes. So we get a little bit more information about what's in the file in terms of the name, where it's saved on my computer, the author and the category and so on. And then I also get some notes. So there's actually quite a lot of information in here if we scroll through. What we'll see is it tells us a little bit of information about dwellings and households. We've got information about the population. So these are all the different kinds of concepts that are presented in here. A note about the impact of municipal restructuring, notes about the census families and first official languages spoken and so on. So there's lots of information in here. If you have questions, it's a really great place to check first. So you can just find that by going File, Summary. As well, if you have any questions about a particular item that has a little blue eye symbol next to it, like this one, so if you just see at total populations by age groups, you can see there's a little eye, you can click on that, and it just gives you a little bit more information. So in this case, it says, the detailed definition is it refers to the age of the last birthday before the reference date, that is before May 10th, 2011. So it gives me clarification about what we're talking about in terms of somebody's age. And you can see these little eye symbols for many items, and I'll just show you. So for the languages one here, on selected non-Aboriginal languages, languages shown were selected based on non-Aboriginal mother tongues other than English or French, most often reported as single responses in the Canada 2011 census of population. And so you can see these notes on lots of different items. Not all of them have a little eye symbol, but many of them will. So those are 2 great ways to answer questions about what you're looking at if you're not quite sure of the definition or you're not quite sure what it means. And then the third way, which I won't demonstrate for you right now, but what you can do on your own is you can go to the Statistics Canada website and download the Census Dictionary or the NHS Dictionary. And in there you can look up alphabetically, or not quite alphabetically, it's sort of thematically and then alphabetically within a lot of these concepts to better understand them. So if you're kind of having trouble, you think that what you're looking at doesn't quite make sense, you can look in the Census Dictionary and better understand any one item. So now we have this open. The first thing I'm going to show you is how we can move between the dimensions. So we've got a dimension here that has all of the census items on it, and then we have a dimension with geography. And I can move these around because there's only 2 dimensions, there's only kind of 2 options, but we can have geography running across the top and the census items running along the side, or I can click and hold geography and then just move it. See how it turns blue and just drop? So now I've got the geographies running down the side, and I've got the census items running across the top. And so we can quickly manipulate and change the view without having to like go into Excel and paste and transpose, for example. Instead, we can just drag and drop. And so it makes it quite easy to set up the view that I want to look at. And I'm just going to go back to my slides for a second here. The other thing I'm going to show you now, just when we return to the Beyond 2020, is we can see kind of how many items we're looking at. So a lot of these Beyond 2020 tables contain lots and lots of information, and it can be kind of important to know, what am I actually looking at? How much am I actually viewing? And so I'll show you how to do that in just a second. I'll return to my slides. And then we're going to figure out how to locate data just for Calgary. So right now, I have two options. I've got the geography dimension across the top, and I've got census dimension. So I'm going to click on the census dimension. I can see, if we look just down kind of in the middle of the screen at the bottom, it says 1,173, and then there's a slash 1,173. So that means I'm seeing all 1,173 items within the dimension. If I were to highlight only a few items, now I see in brackets 6 of 1,173. I think if I were to hide this, oops, I just made those go away. Actually, just going to do this. I'm going to say show, which just shows the ones I highlighted. So I just highlighted 6 rows, and I'm just showing them now. Now it says 6 of 1,173. So I can see that obviously a bunch are hidden because I'm only viewing 6 of the total rather than all of them. And I'll show you how to do that hide item again. But basically, you would highlight whatever you're interested in, but just by clicking and dragging. You can click show, which just shows what you have highlighted, or you can say show all, which then brings everything back. So now I'm back to 1,173 items. And if I was to highlight something and then just click hide, it would just hide the ones I highlighted. So now I'm looking at 1,166 of 1,173. So it just lets me kind of hide stuff I'm not interested in. So I'm going to right click and say show all, just so I bring everything back. We can do the same with geography, and that's what we're going to do now. So I've got geography highlighted, and it's actually 59,337. So it's a lot of geographies in here. We obviously don't want to look at all of those because it's a little bit overwhelming. So under geography, I'm just interested in looking for Calgary. Now if I scroll over, I'm seeing, okay, we had the country, we had the Newfoundland, we've got some numbered items here, we've got Portugal Cove, South T, and so on. So it would be very hard for me to find Calgary this way. Instead, I'm going to use the find function. So if you go to the top bar, you'll see there's a bunch of little icons along the top here. About halfway over, for me at least, I've got the one that says search, and it looks like a little magnifying glass over a spreadsheet. If you just hold and hover your mouse over top of each of these little buttons, you can get an explanation. So this one means next label, this one means print, this one means search, and so on. So I'm going to click search. There's lots of different ways we can search. Now you can search by data, by code, by level, by some like geography codes and that sort of thing. But often what we're looking for is English description or French description. So I'm going to use English description, and I'm going to say reduce. So I'm searching by the English description field, and we have 3 different types of selection. So we can reduce, which means we hide everything that doesn't match the criteria. I can say expand, which would mean if I had some stuff hidden and I wanted to add in others, it would just bring in the new stuff that matches my criteria. And find next means it will just go to, of the ones that are visible, whatever's next in the list. So I'm interested in reduce in this particular case because I only want to see Calgary. I don't want to see all the others. And you're welcome, if you're following along in another place, you can type in a different municipality name, but I'm going to type in Calgary, and I'm going to say OK. And so what it's done now is now I can see at the bottom it's showing 1 of 59,337, and I see Calgary CY, and CY is short for city. So this shows me all the information just for Calgary. So I see that we're looking just at the population that's living alone, just to remind you that's what this target group profile is of. So Calgary has a population of about 1.2 million. But I can see that we've got 110,000 people living alone. So that sounds like it makes about sense that about maybe 90 or a little bit more percent of the population lives with, say, a roommate or a family member or another person. I can see that we've got a whole bunch of information about this population. I'm just going to return to my slides again so we can kind of refresh where we are. So the next thing that we're going to do is we're looking to understand how many people living alone are divorced. So we're going to find the data on the number of people who are divorced, and I'll show you how to do that in a second. And then I'll show you how to understand the information, how to understand the indenting. Okay. Thanks to everybody who's watching, by the way, for your patience, because I'm just learning how to use this Adobe Connect software. So far, so good. Okay, so we've already narrowed down our geography dimension. If we click on geography, we see we're only showing one of 59,000. But for the census dimension, the one that runs left, top to bottom here, we've got all of our information, all 1,173 rows are showing. So that's too much information. I'm only interested in the part about people who are divorced. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the search icon again. It's that magnifying glass. And as a reminder, you can just hover over the icons if you're not sure what they mean. And I just want to make sure I have my 2011 census dimension active. And I can tell that because it's highlighted in black. So when it's not active, it will look blue like this in the geography. But I'm going to click 2011 census and highlight it in black. I'm going to click on search. And then again, I'm going to search by English description because the word divorced is an English descriptor. It's not a piece of data or anything. So I'm going to click on English description. So that's what I'm searching by. And instead of Calgary, I'm going to type in divorced. Now this can be a little bit tricky. It's a bit of a learning curve to get used to what to search for in the tables because I have to know what sorts of terms are used. So for divorce, there's not a lot of other words for it. But if we think about the idea of, say, a parent who doesn't have a partner, some of us might call them a lone parent. Some other people might call them, though, a single parent or a single mom even, or single dad, that kind of thing. And so there's lots of different words we might use to describe that same situation. But we have to know that Statistics Canada uses the word lone parent. And that takes a little bit of a learning curve. But one way that we can learn a little bit about how they describe things is we can scroll through these profiles, like this population profile of those who are living alone. We can see the sorts of items that come up under the 2011 census. It gives us a sense of the language that they use. And I don't know if there's a really quick way to learn this, but I think just as you spend a little bit of time with the data, you'll get a lot more comfortable, I think. So I'm going to click OK to search for divorce, and I'll see that three lines only come up with divorced. And I can tell it's only 3 because it says 3 of 1,173, and I can visually see that as well. Now, this means very little without the context of what else it's nested with. So I'm going to click on the first item here, divorced. I'm going to right click and I'm going to say show all. So this is going to bring all of my rows back. So it's brought me to the spot I need to go to, divorced in this case. And I can see that it was nested with people by marital status. So total population 15 years and over by marital status. Now, one important concept for understanding Beyond 2020 tables and other tables from Statistics Canada is indentation. And so what we have here is the highest level kind of in this particular set of items is the total population. And as you can see, it's kind of pushed out the furthest to the left of these items. Now, one space to the right, we've got married or living with a common law partner, and then not living with a spouse or common law partner. And so those are the same level. And then below married, we've got married and living common law. And below not living with a spouse or common law partner, we have single, separated, divorced, and widowed. So married or living with a common law partner and not living with a common law partner or spouse, those two are subsets of the total population. And so if we were to add the 2,615 to the 107,385, we should come within 5 of being with the total population. There is some random rounding in these tables, and so sometimes they'll be out by 5, but that's okay. If you're out by 100, then we know there's a problem. But if you're out by 5, don't worry, that's just the random rounding. Similarly, if we have married and not separated and living with a common law partner, the two of those should add up to being married or living with a common law partner. That kind of makes sense for that one because we can see that there should be two things there. And so in this case, it does add up. We've got 2,615 plus 0 equals 2,615. So as you go through the tables, you'll see the indentation, and that's really important to kind of understand that all of the items that are indented on the same level should add up to the next higher level. And so what we have here is we've got the total population, and then we've got their characteristics down to widowed, and then we've got the male population down to widowed and the female population down to widowed. And in this table, all of the items will be kind of presented 3 times, once for total, once for male, and once for female. And you'll see that it's a little bit hard to see because they're far apart, but males and females are also a subset of total. So the question was, how many people living alone in Calgary are divorced? And so we can actually find out that information really easily. We can just look at the divorced line under total population because we're only looking at the Calgary geography, and we're only looking at the target group profile of the population living alone, so we know just the people living alone are in this file. And we can see 26,530 people are living alone who are divorced in Calgary. But maybe we want to do some calculations on this, so I'm going to show you how to copy this information over to Excel now. So I think I'm interested in copying all the information about the total population, but I want to leave out the males and the females. I'm not so interested in looking at this by sex, just wanting to look at this by the total population. So I'm going to click on total population, and then I'm going to click and drag until I get to widowed. Oops. And as you can see, it highlights in black all of the rows that I was interested in. And then I'm just going to right click and say copy. And I'm going to open up Excel. I'm going to make a new file. And I'm just going to push Control V, or you can right click and say paste. And what happens is it copies everything over from Beyond 2020. It's set up just the way I want to view it. And I didn't do any calculations in Beyond 2020. I'm just setting it up how I want to view it. So I'm going to make this A column a little bit wider so I can see everything, and the B column a little wider. So what I've got is I can see I got just the Calgary CY geography, just like was in the Beyond 2020 file. And then I've got my items, total population through widowed, in the same order with their numeric values in under column B. If I were to copy more than one geography, like say I had Calgary showing, but I also had Canada and Alberta, so maybe I'm interested in seeing how we compare to the province and the country, then I would just have more columns. So I would have one that said Alberta, and then I'd have all the numbers for it, and then one that says Canada and have all the numbers, and it would copy over just perfectly from Beyond 2020. Then I can see in column A, this is where all the headers come in with the titles of what we're looking at, and the indentation remains. So we've got total population is the furthest left, and then we've got one space in, we've got married or living common law and not living with a spouse or common law partner. And then 2 spaces in, we've got married and living common law, and single, separated, divorced, and widowed. So everything came over with the same kind of format as we saw in Beyond 2020. And now I can do my calculation. So if I wanted to know, for example, what percentage of the total population living alone is divorced, I could just say equals, and then I can click on my divorced, and I can say divided by the total population. And then I can just display this as a percentage. Oops. I just displayed it as a fraction by accident. And I can see it's 24.12% is divorced who are living alone. So it's pretty easy to do our calculations in Excel, but I wouldn't want to try to do that in Beyond 2020.
Jasmine, we do have a question about the data.
Okay. I'm just going to go back to my presenter view so I can see. Okay. When analyzing this data, what do you do when there are data points that don't make sense? Common law is 0. Is there a way to confirm accuracy of the data? So in this case, it actually does make sense. So what we have to remember is this is the population living alone, and common law is defined by a person who's living with their conjugal partner who's not their spouse, or who they're not married to, right? And so if a person is living alone, they can't be living with a conjugal partner, so it should be 0. That does make sense. However, it's easy to kind of, what we saw, though, is we did have 2,600 or something people who were married who are living alone. So those would be people who are living away from their spouse, I would assume, where their spouse lives in another location. But because they're married, they're still counted as having that married relationship, whereas a common law relationship, according to the Statistics Canada definitions, requires us to live with the partner. So in this case, it does make sense. However, I understand the question about we sometimes worry about the accuracy of the data. And I would say, in short, it's difficult because we don't have access to anything that underlies these tables that were given them by Statistics Canada, and then they're posted on the community data website. However, if you encounter something that doesn't make sense to you, my suggestion would be to email the community data program or give them a call. So they would be able to assist you with maybe figuring out, in this case, like saying, oh, okay, well, the reason why a common law person, there should be no common law people at all, it should be 0, is because you have to be living with a partner, and all of these people are living alone, so that wouldn't be possible. Or they could say, oh, this does seem to be a bit funny, maybe there was a mistake in the data, maybe there's an explanation. They can contact Statistics Canada and try to figure that out. So there's not a quick way to confirm the accuracy of the data, but we can check in with the community data program as, I think, one solution for sure. Hopefully that answers your question. Yeah, okay, great. Okay. I'm just going to go back to my slides now. So we moved all of our information over to Excel, and we saw that the indentations remained. And I think that's probably all we're going to do with that data set. We've kind of answered our question, how many people in Calgary who are living alone or divorced. The last question that we're going to answer today as an example, and we can kind of follow along again, is how many females in a particular Calgary community are in low income, that is under LIM-AT. And if you're not familiar with LIM-AT, it's the low income measure after tax. And this is a sort of newish, maybe not new, but a more, Statistics Canada has used this as their standard low-income measure in this 2011 Census and National Household Survey. And previously they used something called LICO, the low-income cutoff. And it's kind of another discussion to talk about what happened there and why they switched kind of indicators of low income. But it's just important to note that this is the concept we're using, is low-income measure after tax. So we're wanting just to remind us of the question, how many females in a particular Calgary community are in low income? So we can use, my Calgary community is called Hillhurst, Hillhurst. So we can use that one as an example, or you can go to your own custom geographies and find a community in your own local area if that's better for you. So the first thing we need to do is we need to find the information that's available by custom geographies. And I know in this case, for me, I know that we're looking for the Community Poverty Project Table 1. And so I'm going to help you find that. Again, this takes a little bit of practice to kind of understand where you might find this information, but I'll walk you through how to get to this table in this moment. And as you explore the catalog a little bit more, hopefully you can find some information you're looking for. So in this case, I'm going to use the button on a Windows computer. So I had target group profile selected. I'm just going to hold down Control and click again, and it unselects it, so nothing is selected here now. I'm going to scroll down to Geography, and I'm going to say Custom Geographies, because I know that the Calgary communities are not a standard Census or Statistics Canada geography, so I need to look for the custom ones, and I'm just going to hit Search. So this is going to show me everything that's available for custom geographies. For us in Calgary, often we're asked questions about what sorts of characteristics we have by Calgary community, and so we know immediately that we can eliminate all of the information that's not available for those geographies. There's lots of stuff available for us. We've got 112 of the 737 items have custom geographies in them, so it's actually pretty good. We can see that there's lots of different pieces, including that target group profile of the population living alone. So I know that I'm looking for CPP Table 1. And CPP stands for Community Poverty Project, and the Community Poverty Project tables have lots of information about income, so I'm pretty sure that I'm going to find this information that I need in that table. And so if you just use Control F or Find in your browser and type in CPP, we can come to the CPP Table 1, and I'm going to click on that. Table 1 for this particular data set, and I would say for a lot of the ones that have a numbered system where they'll say, you know, we've got Table 1, Table 2, and Table 3, and so on. The Table 1 tends to contain a lot of popular information that's kind of a summary of what's what's a part of that custom run. So we can see in the description the Community Poverty Project tables are custom tabulations created for the Community Data Program, and the tables cross-tabulate low-income status variables with numerous demographic and socioeconomic characteristics. And it came out of the Canadian Council on Social Development's Urban Poverty Project. I can see in this particular table we have sex, 3, so we can probably guess that's total, male and female. Age groups, 22, so we've got some age grouping breakdown. Income status, which is the one that we're looking for in terms of low income. And then selected cultural activity and demographic characteristics. So let's click on this just to kind of understand what we're going to see. So if I click on that selected characteristics 37, I see that we've got some information about Aboriginal identity, visible minority, activity limitations, where a person was born, whether they've moved to a different dwelling over the past 5 years, and then if they've been an intra-provincial or intra-provincial migrant. So if they've been moving within a province or between provinces. So this gives me a sense of what's in that table. I'm going to go back now, and I'm going to select, because I know that I need Calgary communities, I'm going to select custom geos. So that's the custom geographies, and I know that that contains the neighborhoods for Calgary. So I'm going to say add to cart. It's also available for some standard geographies, so if you're just interested at the city level for yourself, you could select the one that said CSD, for example. I'm going to submit my order. I'm just going to wait for it to come up here. And then I see it came up first for me here, CPP Table 1. And I'm just going to click on that file to download it. I'm going to save it. And then I'm going to open the folder. It's just going to take a second because it's a big file. I'm going to open the folder that it came in. This one's quite a large file. It was about 45 megabytes, I think. So lots of information in there. Okay. So it's in the folder, right? Yeah. I'm not quite sure what this bottom file is here, the one that says CPP01PH3. Not quite sure what that is, but we know we want the one in the folder. So I'm just going to go in there. And I see there's 2 custom geography files, Group 1 and Group 2. That's kind of hidden in this long description, but yeah, there were 2 groups, and the reason why this is that some of the custom geographies got submitted at different times. So this is just based on whether it went in the first group or the second group. Now I know off the top of my head that Calgary was in Group 1, so I'm going to click on that one. But it's only 2 tables to look through. It's never like there's 20 groups or something. You'd only have maybe 2, maybe 3 groups total. And so if you're not sure, you can just look through the files quickly and search to see if your geography comes up. So I'm going to close the target group profile that I was working on earlier. And you'll notice that it didn't cue me to save the file. There's no need to save it. The IBT tables or the Beyond 2020 tables are really great for viewing stuff, but again, they're not good for doing any analysis or anything. So there's nothing special that I manipulated in there that I'd want to save for later. And one warning for you is if you do choose to save the table and you've hidden anything, it remains hidden forever. You can never unhide it once you save it. So if, for example, I just hid everything except for Calgary and then I saved it, the next time I open it, I wouldn't be able to say unhide and find all the other geographies. So just gone. Now, it's not a huge deal because I can always go back to the Community Data Program website and download the file again. But it's just a warning for you. If you feel like something's missing, it might be because you accidentally saved the file and then the items that were not visible when you saved it have now disappeared. So it's my practice, and I would argue is a good practice, to just leave things as they are, just close them and save the unaltered file to a location that's convenient for you on your computer, and then just access it and arrange things as you want to see it, copy it over to Excel, and then save those files. Because otherwise you'll kind of, over time you could lose some of the data and you could be confused about what you're viewing and what is missing. So for this file here, if we see this little box that says age groups, if I click down, I can see actually all the dimensions. So in the previous file that we looked at, it only had 2 dimensions. It had the geography and all the variables, just on 2 dimensions. This one has 5 dimensions, though. We've got geography, sex, low-income STA, which I can assume is low-income status, age groups, and selected CARAC, which I'm thinking is selected characteristics. So we've got 5 different dimensions in here, and we can see them displayed. So we've got geography running top to bottom, and low-income STA, which is status, running top across the top. And then we also have 3 items in the top bar here. So we've got age groups, sex, and selected characteristics. So these ones aren't, we're not seeing all of the items displayed, but they are dictating what's visible in our table. So just as a first kind of experiment, I'll encourage you to kind of start moving stuff around. So I can click and drag age groups over and drop it over geography, for example. And now geography is showing in that top area. It's not visible, all of the items within it, but I can see it's showing York, Ward 1, Aurora. So I'm just seeing the information for York right now under geography, but I am seeing all of the different information for age groups. So I can see who's under 15, who's 0 to 1 years old, who's 14 to 18, and so on. So I can see lots of information there. I can do the same with sex. I can drag it and replace it with age groups. I can drag my selected characteristics over and drag and drop and replace. So I can move everything around as I like. If I want to move something to the top bar, I can just trade it. So I can drag sex here and put it over top of age groups, and they just replace each other. The other thing I can do is I can nest items. So for example, if I want to see all of these selected characteristics by sex, I can drag sex, and if I was to put it over top of selected characteristics, it highlights the whole thing in blue, and so I know that they would be replacing each other. But if I drag sex kind of between the yellow section and the white section, you can see kind of a blue bar highlights, and if I drop it there, I can see now I see total Aboriginal identity, and I can see total male and female. I can see Aboriginal identity only by total male and female, and so on. So it nests two together so that I can see each of the items by sex. Now we can get a kind of crazy table if, for example, I was to go now drag low income beside sex between the yellow and the white. Now I've got total Aboriginal identity for males by all of the different low-income statuses. And so this starts to get to be kind of a cumbersome table because it becomes very long. I have a whole bunch of rows kind of active now, and it would take me a long time to read through this. So instead, I think we're going to narrow things down. So what we were looking at is a particular Calgary community. In this case, we're going to look at Hillhurst for Calgary, or you can look at a community in your own area. And we want to know how many, I think it was how many women were in low income. Is that correct? Okay. So to find my geography, I can do two things. I can just click on geography here, and I can go into the search window and search for it that way. Or if I want to kind of see what my options are, I can drag it over into one of these boxes. So I'm going to get rid of sex because I don't want to look at that right now. And I'm just going to drag it into the top bar and remove it. And I'm going to get rid of low income status by dragging it into the top bar. I'm just going to look at geography for now. So I can see that these are labeled in a way that says the first three letters of the area that got the custom geography, and then a name for the geography. If I scroll through, I can see sometimes it's abbreviated and so on. Now for me, I know that for Calgary, we've got the prefix Cal, and then the next prefix is community, or COM. So I'm going to go to the search box. I'm going to say English description and reduce, and I got geography highlighted, and I'm going to type in CAL, and then I can see that there's a space, a hyphen, and a space in the name, and then I'm going to type in COM for Calgary community. I'm going to hit OK. And so the naming convention varies a little bit for the different geographies, so you'll have to figure out what it is for your own local area if you're going to do this. But for Calgary, for the communities, it's CAL, space, hyphen, space, COM. So now I can just see only Calgary communities. So these are the names of the places around. So we've got Chaparral, Charleswood, Chinatown, and so on. So I know I'm looking for Hillhurst, and I could manually scroll through to the H's and find it this way. And if I did, I could just right-click on it and say Show, and that would just show the Hillhurst communities. I'm going to say Show All, and then I'm going to narrow it back down to the communities again. The other way to find this now is to search again, and I can say, okay, I want Cal, Com, and then I'm going to go another space, hyphen, space, and I'm going to type in Hillhurst. So if you know the name of your community that you're looking for, you can do it that way, and you just have to understand the naming convention of your local area. So now I've just got the community of Hillhurst. And so the other things I need to know is I need to know whether, I need to know this information for females and who are in low income under Lim AT. So I know for example, for this age groups one, I don't really need it. I just need to know the total age. So I can just drag and drop this up to the top and trade it with low income status. Now I need to be careful though, because if I have age groups highlighted and then say I clicked on 24 to 34 when I'm dragging up, If I drag it up and replace it with low income status, I can see now it says age groups colon 25 to 34. So it's actually not showing me the total population, it's showing me that little subset. And that's kind of a problem because I actually want to see for all ages. So I'm going to drag it back down here. Oops. I'm going to drag it back down here, and I'm going to look for the total, which in this case is the furthest left, and I'm going to make sure that that's the one I'm clicking on when I'm dragging and dropping. So now it says age groups, total, sex, and age groups. So I know I'm looking at all of the age groups, and that's what I know I need. For low income status, I know I needed LIM AT. Now I can see there's actually a whole bunch of low income status. It says low income person, bracket below, and then it ... So I could hover over it and I could see, okay, this means lim BT, this means lim AT, and so on. So I can see which one I need that way, but that can be kind of cumbersome. Instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip this with geography so I can see the full label. So I'm going to take low income status and I'm going to drag it down to geography so that it'll trade places. So now we've traded places, and I don't need to see the full name of my community because I already know it's Hillhurst. I already know it's what I need. And instead, I can see now I've got total population in private households, and then population for income status. And I have 5 different low-income measures: LIM, BT and AT, LICO, BT and AT, and MBM, which is market basket measure. So I can see now I'm displaying the right information. I can see, though, under selected characteristics that it's showing Aboriginal identity, and this isn't right. I want to see the total population. I don't want to just see Aboriginal people. So I'm going to click on that one. I'm going to drag it down and trade it with low-income status, so I can see what's going on, and I'm going to scroll to the top. This one that says total Aboriginal identity, that is actually the total population, because what it means is it includes Aboriginal identity, which is nested below it, and non-Aboriginal identity. So everybody who is either Aboriginal or non-Aboriginal, if we add those all together, that equals everybody, because everybody's one or the other. And so I can choose that line, the total Aboriginal identity, and use it as a proxy for the total population. Even though the label kind of sounds like it's about Aboriginal people, because it means it includes all of the different items underneath, it's the total. So I'm going to highlight total Aboriginal identity, like I'm going to click on it, and then I'm going to drag it and trade it with low income status. So now I've got selected characteristics, total Aboriginal identity, which is what I'm looking for. I've got sex female, which was already highlighted there, but I'll show you how to get to that in a second, and then age groups total. So in this case, we're interested just in the female people. So I'm going to drag the sex over to be between low income status and the white data, the white columns of data. And I can see now it populates everything where I've got total, male, and female for each of these items. So I know I was looking, our question was about whether, how many people are in low income below lim AT who are female. So I can see in Calgary Hillhurst, I have 415 people. So this is how we find the answer. We have to get the table set up to the right shape, right where we've got the totals for selected characteristics and age group showing, but we're only looking at Hillhurst, we're only looking at low income status, and we're only looking at sex. So I've got everything set up so I can see it. I can now copy this over to Excel to do some analysis. So maybe I'm just interested in those ones who are below lim after tax. So I can just select those 3 rows, oops, by clicking on the low income person below lim AT, and I can see 3 rows highlighted because it's all 3 of those sex categories, and it's for Hillhurst. I can just right click now and say copy, and then I can go over to my Excel file. I'm just going to go to a new sheet so we can paste this over, and I'm going to say Control V, or you can right click and say paste. So now I've pasted this information over, and I'll show you how to read this table. So in A1, it says selected characteristics, total Aboriginal identity. So we know that's right. It just brought over that information, and this is how you can kind of double check what's in your file. So if this said selected characteristics, visible minorities, for example, or visible minority, then that would mean I'm only looking at the people who are visible minorities. So I would have made a mistake, and I'd want to go back to my Beyond 2020 file. But here I can see it's showing the total, so that's good. And I can see in column B, it's showing age groups total. So I can see all of the ages. That's what I want. And then those are just the pieces that were that are not being displayed in full here, same as in the Beyond 2020 file. They're the items that have been left at the top. And then the actual data starts in row 2 in this table. So we've got, in column C, we've got our geography. So that's the community that we were looking at, Hillhurst. And then I've got, nested together, I've got the low income person. So that's the person who's living below lim AT. And I've got it for total, males, and females. So now I've got all the information I need to say, for example, what percentage of the people who are in low income in Hillhurst are female. So I can say equals sign and then choose C5, which is the female cell, by the total cell, which is C3. And just hit enter, and I can just display this as a percentage. I can see it's 54.25%. So just a little over half of the people in low income in my community are female. So that's how you can find that information. And like I said before, Beyond 2020, I'm just returning to it here, is a way for setting things up. I don't want to calculate anything in here. I don't want to do any analysis. I just want to set it up in the way that I want to view. I could, if I wanted, the neighboring community to Hillhurst in Calgary is called Sunnyside. So I could bring that one up too to compare. I could just go to the little search icon. So I've got the geography dimension highlighted in black here. Just click the little search icon, say English description, and then instead of reduce, I'm going to choose expand. So this is going to add something else to the selection. So I've got Cal, Com, Hillhurst. Instead, I'm going to type Sunnyside. So that's S-U-N-N-Y-S-I-D-E. And what that does, I just hit enter, is now it brings up, I've got Hillhurst and I've got Sunnyside. So these two are neighboring communities in Calgary. They share a community association. So maybe I'm interested in looking at that holistically. So I've got these two items here. And I could do the same thing. I could just click on the low-income person in Lim AT, right-click. As you can see, it highlights the cells that I'm interested in. I could right-click, copy, and then take it over to Excel. I can paste this here. Oops. Sorry, I accidentally pushed paste too soon. And so now I pasted this over here, and we see the same information. We've got the total Aboriginal identity and the total sex and age groups. But now I've got two geographies. I've got Hillhurst and I've got Sunnyside. So I can see them side by side, and I can check, for example, if I want to know if the proportions are any different, I'm going to insert a new column here, and I'm going to do that same calculation to see what the percentage of people who are female and who are low income are in Hillhurst. But I'm going to do the same equation, so that's equals sign, and then I'm going to divide the females by the total. And I'm going to display both of these as percentages. So I'm just going to format percent. And I can see it's a slightly higher percentage at 55.56 who are female of the people in low income under Lim AT and Sunnyside. So I can bring lots of geographies across if I copy and paste from Beyond 2020 if that's what I choose, depending on what I have displayed. I'm just going to return to my slides now. So Beyond 2020 seems a little bit tricky at first, but really it's about just arranging things into the view that you want to copy it over to Excel. And if you feel like the data doesn't make sense, if you feel like some people are missing, it may be because under one of your dimensions, you're only displaying a portion of the population. And so it's important for anything you don't want to narrow, if you don't want to narrow things down by a particular dimension, you just want to make sure you're on that total row rather than one of the subsets, because it will narrow down the population a bit. I'm just going to skip through these slides because we've already done some of this. And this is just a few warnings for you before we wrap up. And if anybody has any questions, we'll have a couple minutes for that after this. So for the National Household Survey, which is where some of this data came from, like the Community Poverty Project tables, it was a different methodology than had been used previously for other censuses. And so what we had was a voluntary National Household Survey instead of a mandatory census. And what's important about this is that when you have a voluntary survey, oftentimes people don't respond as much as they would as if it was mandatory. And so we have what's called a global non-response rate, which is a kind of a good indicator of the data quality to see how many people actually responded who had an opportunity. And that's displayed for anything to do with the National Household Survey. And so if you'll notice, if you go back to the Beyond 2020 file, you'll see that beside each of the geographies, and I'm just going to open this up so we can see it. You can see beside each of the geographies we have a bracketed percentage. So here we've got Cal, Com, Hillhurst, so that's the Hillhurst community, and then it says bracket 30.9%. So that means that the global non-response rate was 30.9%. Higher global non-response rates, so it's the non-response, the people who didn't respond, either in part or in full, the higher that is, kind of the worse the data quality is. And so if we look at the threshold for suppressions, the threshold for saying this data is not good enough to use is 50%. So these ones are both under 50%, but we can see, okay, about 3 in 10 households maybe had an opportunity to respond, didn't respond to all of the questions or didn't respond to any of the questions. And so you just need to keep an eye on that. If you ever see a number above 50%, means don't use that information. It's not good quality. At the City of Calgary, we also recommend that if it's above 37% but below 50%, that you be a bit cautious with it, because it's still a pretty high non-response rate. And it's good just to know that maybe this information doesn't perfectly represent the community, because sometimes the people who don't respond to a survey don't share the same characteristics as those who do. So maybe the people who do, maybe they're better at reading, or maybe they have higher incomes, or maybe they have higher education, or all of these sorts of things. There's sometimes differences between those who respond and those who don't. So it's just important to remember, if it's above 37%, yeah, maybe it isn't very good quality, but you can still use it. And if it's above 50%, you shouldn't use it because it's not good enough quality. So that's how you can find the global non-response rate. It's always next to the geography. Sometimes we get asked if there's a non-response rate for certain populations, like can we know the non-response rate for Aboriginal people or for immigrants or that kind of thing, because we make some assumptions that maybe certain population groups are more or less likely to respond. Unfortunately, this global non-response rate indicator is a geographic one, so it's tied to the area of the country that we're looking at rather than to a particular population, and we don't have the same kind of data quality indicator for populations. But just remember that sometimes populations that might be a bit marginalized or vulnerable might have been less likely to respond, but we don't have an exact number around how much less likely. I'm going to return to my slides now. Oops. Just figuring out how to use this software. Okay. So that was the global non-response rate. The abbreviation for that is GNR. As well, you can check those definitions for all your items in Beyond 2020 with that little blue eye symbol. So just remember, you can go in there if you're not sure what you're looking at. It's really a good idea to just take a couple seconds to check that out, and it will explain to you what you're looking at. If you come across an item that you don't know what it means, but it doesn't have a little blue eye symbol beside it, you might try checking the National Household Survey or Census Dictionary just to see if maybe they have some information in there. And a good hint for that, they're very long documents, they're a few hundred pages long, and it can be a bit overwhelming, but if you download the electronic version, you can just use the find function in your PDF reader to search for what you're looking for. So you don't have to read all 500 pages or 300 pages or however long it is. You can instead just go and say, okay, I want to know more about Aboriginal identity. So you can go Control F and then just type in Aboriginal, and it'll just bring you to that spot in the document that tells you a bit more about what they mean when they say Aboriginal identity. You can also look at some technical reports and other documentation provided by Statistics Canada if it's available, and on a lot of these topics there is extra documentation, and so it can be a good idea to review that information if you have any questions. But if you're having trouble understanding what's in there, or you're having trouble interpreting the data, or you're wondering, okay, it seems like some numbers are missing, or the numbers aren't quite what I'm expecting, your best bet is just to contact the Community Data Program, and they can provide you with some support there around figuring out, is this just maybe you don't have your table set up correctly and you've accidentally hidden something? Is this a mistake in the data? Is this something where we need to ask Statistics Canada for a better definition? Is this something where maybe someone's already asked the same question and the Community Data Program can just forward that response right over to you? So they can be really helpful to answer those questions. So I think that's about all I have now. I'm happy to answer questions for you folks if anybody has any. And I can stay online for a little while if people are practicing. But other than that, thank you very much for being here and for listening. And thanks for trying out this Adobe Connect option for kind of sharing this information, because it's really great to be able to share with a really broad group of people. Yeah, so thank you.
Thank you very much, Jasmine. That was a wonderful presentation. I'm just going to load up your presentation right now, if that's okay, so people can download it actually directly from the screen, if they just want to get the slides.
Yeah, that's great.
Right, hang on a second.
Multiple attendees are typing. Oh, you're welcome, folks.
So if you're looking for the presentation, just give me 1 second and we'll get it up there.
Yeah, so you can get those slides there, and you can definitely contact. I got Mike from the community data program here in the room, and you're willing to take questions if people have questions about the data and that sort of thing. Yeah.
Yes.
So
I have a question. Tracy, can you send me your proper email address? I just got your account.
did you hear that, Tracy? If you can send Mike your proper email address, he just got your account request. So yeah, if you could do that, that would be awesome. Awesome, thank you. Does anybody have any questions, or do you just kind of want to go away and practice and then maybe contact Mike if anything isn't working for you? You're welcome, Gilbert. Well, I think maybe what we'll do here is I have a few people live in the room, and so maybe I'll mute my microphone for now, but if you have any questions, we'll stay online for a few minutes here, and you can just type them into the box, and I can come back online if that's useful. Okay?
Okay, that's
Thanks
great.
very much.
Thank you so much, Jasmine.
Thanks, Mary. How do I mute this?